Well, folks, I am so happy to have Colleen Penny with me today to share her story. I hear from diabetics all the time and they tell different things, and there are some times where they say things that they just intrigue me. I'm just like, I've got to know more. And this sounds, too interesting, too good for me not to want to share it with everybody else. So, Colleen, welcome to Beat Diabetes.
Thank you. Yes, I'm happy to be here.
All right.
I, I,
So,
I try to help people at the store where I work, the superstore, and people load stuff into their carts that's not exactly healthy, and they feed it to their whole families. And I don't tell them what to buy, but
right.
I run into so many diabetics now.
So
It isn't
you are
even
a
funny.
store clerk. You
Yeah, I
work at
work.
the
I
checkout
work
line.
actually in the bakery. I work in the bakery.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you deal with a lot of white flour products, don't you? Which is
Yes.
kind of the enemy
Yes.
of
I
diabetics. But
know. And I tell people I don't eat nothing here anymore.
oh, that's
But I
funny.
do I do have we do have other bread for them in the natural value. I refer them to the carbonate bread. It's like keto carbonate. I don't know if you
Okay.
heard it.
No, I've not
Yeah.
heard of that, but sounds
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes. Well, it's
So
like a keto friendly Canadian version of, bread that people who are diabetic that can eat safely.
yeah, all right, very cool. So you are a Canadian. You're in apparently a little town called Medicine Hat.
Medicine Hat. Yeah, it
Medicine
got
Hat.
that name because the medicine man, there were native people at the time and the medicine man lost his hat in the South Saskatchewan River and his big, whatever kind of chief hat that they had, and they call it Medicine Hat.
Okay, very cool. So
Yeah.
we've had a lot of Canadians that watch our channel, and I've interviewed several of them. One of the things that I found interesting out of the different comments you left and emails you sent me was your reaction when you found out that you were diabetic. The doctor had told you that. Tell us what happened leading up to that, and then how you reacted when you were told, Colleen, you're diabetic.
Yeah. Well, what had happened is actually the weekend before I went, that weekend, I was so tired and I was eating whole wheat spaghetti with my own spaghetti sauce, thinking I'm eating super healthy, right? Like I never drank pop in my life and I rarely ate candy, never had a cavity in my front teeth ever, and I'm going to be 58 next month. So how did I become diabetic, right? And I didn't realize, but below the neck, carbs are the same as sugar. And whole wheat spaghetti has like 70, 80 grams of carbs a serving. And anyway, but I did have won't lie, I had chocolate, the odd piece here and there, like at Halloween, but I didn't eat a ton of it, right? And I was a carbaholic, though. That's what I would call myself because, yeah, I did like my carbs. So, anyway, that weekend, I think I was really sick and I was so tired. I remember Friday, I slept all day, I slept all night. Saturday, I slept all day, I slept all night. Sunday, I slept all day and I slept all night, basically. Barely got out of bed, right? And yeah, and I had to run to the bathroom because, oh my God, it was bad. And I ran to the doctor because I had a bladder infection, right? And when my mother got sick and went to the hospital, she had a massive bladder infection that turned septic. I was getting the same symptoms literally as my mother. And at that age, when older people get a bladder infection, it can affect their brain. But yeah, so I went to the doctor. He did some blood work and ordered some blood work, and they called me. I think it was on a Monday at work to come in immediately to stop, drop what I was doing, and just come and see the doctor right now. I said, right now? Yeah, right now. So I got there, and he said I was like a diabetic. And I said, are you sure? With an A1c at 13.5. I didn't know what that meant. I had a diabetes wasn't on my radar. Now I know that it was obscenely high. And thinking back, I don't know, like I work hard at the bakery, super hard. I unload pallets and pallets, right? And I come to the conclusion you can't outrun a bad diet. Like
Yeah, now
some
let me
people can
interrupt for a
do it.
minute.
Yeah.
You told in your comments how that it seemed like your mom had passed away at this point, but it seemed
Yeah.
like she was speaking something to you.
Oh, she did. As soon as the doctor told me I was diabetic, I swear I heard my mother's voice in my head. I know exactly. She would have said, Colleen, it's a sin to let yourself go.
Uh-huh.
That's what she would have said. I know my mother, like
Yeah, so
that was
you
her.
were feeling like you had a role in bringing yourself to this extreme diabetes. And you're right, 13.5 as an A1c, that is obscenely high for sure. A lot of people are worried to death because they've got a 7.5 A1c or an 8.0, and you were at
Yeah.
13 and a half. So the thought comes across your mom as though your mom would tell you it's a sin to let yourself go. That kind of gave you a little bit of direction about
Oh,
what's next,
yeah.
right?
You know what? She might be passed away, but I still don't drink pop because my mother would never allow us to have that. And I know my mother, like she tried to take good care of herself, but, she didn't realize the oatmeal she was eating every morning was high carb. And I don't think people on my mother's side of the family should eat high carb because on her sisters and brothers all went roughly the same way as my mother. And and I can just see I was going that same way. My mother, years before she got sick, about 4 or 5 years before that, she had something wrong with her toenails and she had to have them all removed. They were growing in crooked and thick and ugly. And you know what? When had a raging diabetes there, my toenails, the tips of my big toes were going black. And yeah, and when I was walking up the stairs, I don't know what it is to this day, I had a hard time lifting my leg. It was like the brain didn't want to send the signal to the feet, right? And I remember when my mom got sick, and when she first got to the 2 North, which is at the hospital there, and her feet were moving funny. And I said to the doctor, the nurse, why is it that her feet, like are sort of dragging and she can't walk proper? And they said it's because the brain isn't sending the signal to the feet. I don't have that problem anymore, but yeah. You know what? I don't know if that's a type of neuropathy or what it is, but it's gone. It's not that my feet were heavy to lift up. It's just that the feet, I had to think a second to make the feet move, right?
So many of your mother's symptoms you were experiencing.
Yes. Oh, and then she used to say, like, a few years before she got sick, I think she was diabetic looking back, because the last 5 years of her life, she just suddenly ballooned and got really big and was tired, wanted to sit on the couch all the time. And then her speech started to change. Instead of saying, Colleen, where were you? She would say, Colleen, where was you? I thought that was so cute, but I didn't realize. And then I found myself when I was trying to record videos, things would come out wrong. And it was like, why did I say that? And
Okay.
I think it was maybe a type of type 3 diabetes, where your brain can become insulin resistant. And I do believe I shouldn't even have been driving when my A1c was 13.5, because you know what? Your brain's the hungriest organ in your whole body, requires like 25% of your daily intake of calories. And if my muscle, oh yeah, and my muscles got so weak. I used to be so strong at work. I could just lift these big pallets with this little thing that you lift with your two hands that were higher than my head, right onto the pallet, no problem. And then suddenly I could barely move it. I was so weak. But now I've got my strength back because I'm eating nothing but eggs, and while I do eat mostly carnivore for supper now, and I do eat some plants, but I'll chew on sunflower seeds when I'm watching TV in the shell, because it's like eating potato chips. That was my go-to, right? So I've replaced the potato chips with sunflower seeds or salty, or peanuts in the shell, because they
All right.
always
Well,
taste better in the shell.
let's go back to when you first got diagnosed. You had all these symptoms. You were scared. You knew you had to make some change. And of course, a lot of people realize that when they realize they've got severe diabetes. But there are different ways you can go, different changes you can make, different advice people will give you. Uh, what kind of change did you make? Did it take you very long to figure out what to do?
No, I have, you know what? I watch YouTube all the time. Keto was sort of on my mind because I had seen other people, and I work at the supermarket and we're selling keto stuff, but wasn't really into it, but I was sort of paying attention to it. And I knew when my doctor said that I was diabetic and I'd have to take this medication, I said, I'm only going to take it for a short time and then I'll be done. Oh, yeah, my doctor always says to me, that he never thought I could do it. And he has that word he uses. It's disciplined. I'm very disciplined. I
Okay,
kind of
so
like
now he
that.
thinks you're very disciplined, but at the beginning he didn't think you had what it takes to really
No,
make the
no,
necessary
but
changes.
I'm literally too scared to be diabetic. I'm terrified to go to the dentist. I'm terrified of needles. I hate anything to do with the medical. I don't like to be poked and prodded and things shoved in me. And I'm sorry, I refuse to be diabetic. I refuse to eat the animal food, the grains and the oats, right? And even rice is for the birds in China. It's animal food. I refuse to eat all that high glycemic animal food.
Wow. So
Refuse to
you
be
figured out
diabetic.
you had watched some people talk about keto on YouTube prior to that, but you hadn't really been moved to make that change. But apparently almost immediately you decided, yeah, this is what I need to do. Is that right?
That's right. And I told my doctor I was going to go keto, and he never said a word, not a word. He did say, oh, eggs are good. They're a complete food. So he was happy that I was eating eggs. But yeah, no, for breakfast, I'll have eggs fried in butter with maybe a piece of cheese on top, and my coffee with the heavy whipping cream, 35% milk fat before it's whipped, right? Because there's no sugar in that. Now people are drinking skim milk, and you can become diabetic. The lower fat you go, the more sugar you get, right? So if you choose the low fat ice cream, you're actually getting an extra 12 grams of sugar in your ice cream. But I make my own ice cream now from the heavy whipping cream and add the swerve. And I don't even crave it hardly anymore now that I do strictly carnivore suppers. Like I'll do like the beef short ribs, salt and pepper, and a bit of garlic spice, and I'm good to go. It's like delicious.
Yeah. So you figured out pretty fast that I really need to do keto. But even though you pretty much are sure that's the way to go, it takes a little bit of time and seeing some good results. And then you start to breathe easier, like, yeah, this is really working. Tell us about your moments. How long did it take before you started seeing results in terms of your blood sugar? And it was confirmed to you, this is working.
Yeah. Well, as soon as the doctor told me I was diabetic and I had to go get a prescription, I also got the little glucose meter, and the pharmacist showed me how to use it that day. And that day was like the day they tested me, my blood sugar was like at 23. That's Canadian. I don't know what that is in American, but
Really
it
high,
was
I know
high.
that.
Yeah. And so the day he tested me, I was at 18, which is the Canadian reading, and that is high. And after that, like I was literally terrified to eat. The first couple weeks, I swear, I just ate eggs, like, and then very little of nothing. I walked around the mall terrified to eat anything because I knew somehow that, yeah, that, once I figured out that how bad it was. I started looking on YouTube, which is I always do, and I follow now the keto and carnivore doctors, and I found your channel, and I just soaked everything up about diabetes. I had to know everything about diabetes, even type 3 diabetes. I wanted to know everything. And yeah, no, I literally refuse to be diabetic. I don't want to end up with type 3 diabetes. I don't want to end up like Johnny Cash, or Waylon Jennings. They had all this money and no doctor ever told them, you know what? You don't have to be type 2 diabetic. It's your choice. And if I could go from an A1c, the first 3 months, I dropped my A1c from 13.5 to 6.7. And that was in 3 months, but I couldn't take that metformin. So we put me on this other medication. I think it was Farxiga, where the sugar comes out through your urine, right? And I thought, well, that's more natural. I could not take that metformin. It just made me sick. And and then after 3 months, I was off all medication. I have not been on medication since. And every time I go for my blood work, every 3 months, I used to go. Now I go every 6 months. It's gone down consistently. And now I'm at 5.5. And you know what? I'm still not happy. I won't be happy till it's 4.7 or 5.0. Then I might celebrate. And yeah, you know what? I work at a bakery and I do not eat that food, literally.
You're not tempted to eat some of those
If I
bakery treats?
have to, like, I will have a pea size, like, taste like this, that's smaller than a size of a pea, like, just to taste the flavor, and that's it.
Okay, well, that's pretty
Because
powerful. Now let's
no.
think about your numbers. You went from 13.5 and your last one was 5.5. So if my mathematics skills are serving me correctly, you dropped 8 full points in how long was that from the 13 down to the 5.5?
Well, it's been 2.5 years, but
Okay.
I originally got it from 13.5 to 6.7. Then it went down 2 points, like every time I went from 6.7 to 6.4 to 6.2, and then I was 6.0 for two times in a row, and then 5.8 or something, and then 5.0.
Yeah.
Or sorry,
So
5.5. I'm 5.5 right now, but I will be happier when I'm 5.0.
so at some point you had to say to yourself, this is awesome. It's actually working, and it's working very, very well.
Yeah, well, you know what? I knew it would work, because when I go on YouTube and I listen to what the people say, I also read the comments. And if the comments, all the people are saying the same thing, then you know it's not fake news. So I
Well,
kind of knew.
yeah, that's right. I mean, if all the people in the comments that are testifying to the effectiveness of this, and all the testimonies that you see on my channel and others, if they're all lying, there's a whole bunch of liars out there. I don't think there's that many liars. Do you?
No,
And
no.
we know you're telling the truth as well. So if anybody questions Colleen, I'm sure they could
Well, they
have
know
a
me. They all know me at the superstore in Medicine Hat, and
yeah. The lady
I've
that
kind of
sells the bread rolls
yeah.
doesn't eat the bread rolls.
Yeah, but I can sell them lots of meat, but I do sell them stuff in the organic aisle. I show them keto friendly things to eat that are keto bread. And I tell them, you know what? Cabbage rolls would be keto if you switched the rice for rice cauliflower, and you barely know the difference. And it tastes so good, you
Yeah.
know? Just make sure you pick the tomato sauce without the sugar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking about the doctor tells you you're diabetic, and you ask him, are you sure? And of course, he is sure. And then it seems like your mom was speaking, saying it's a sin to let yourself go. And boom, you're off to the races. Well, not everybody's going to hear the voice of your mom, but they can hear your voice. So why don't you be like your mom was to you? Be like that toward others that are watching this. Give them some encouragement as we bring
Yeah.
this to a close.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You can replace all your favorite meals with keto meals, and you can be just as satiated and happy. I can make my own keto ice cream. It's easy. You just have to Google keto recipes. They come up. I went through all that earlier. I made keto. I even make keto pizza. Yeah, out of a chaffle, the base, you've probably heard of a
Mm-hmm.
chaffle, but
Yeah.
you can do it. You just have to be determined. You have to want not to be diabetic.
If you've recently been diagnosed with diabetes and you've just discovered this channel, let me recommend that you go to our uploads page, which will give you access to every diabetic video we've posted since we began. As you work your way through all our videos, I believe you'll find the help you need. A link to our uploads page is in the description.